My boss said, "I literally own you," so I made him prove it in court and destroyed his entire life. I'd been working at Meridian Financial Services for 4 years when my boss, Gregory Ashworth, said the words that would eventually ruin him. We were in his corner office on the 32nd floor, and I'd just told him I was declining to work the holiday weekend because my daughter had her first dance recital. "You don't get to decline anything, Nora," he said, leaning back in his leather chair that probably cost more than my car. "When you signed your employment contract, you agreed to be available whenever I need you. I literally own you." I stood there holding my folder and felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly, but clarity. "You own me?" I repeated slowly. He smiled like he'd just made a brilliant point. "Contractually speaking, your time, your expertise, your output, it all belongs to me. That's what employment means. I own your productive capacity." I nodded and left his office without another word, but my mind was already working. If Gregory Ashworth believed he owned me, I was going to make him prove it in a court of law. That night, I pulled out my employment contract and read every single word for the first time since I'd signed it 4 years ago. It was 73 pages long, which should have been my first warning sign, but I'd been desperate for the job back then. Fresh out of my MBA program with student loans crushing me and a 6-month-old daughter to support a loan after my ex disappeared. I'd signed whatever they put in front of me without reading the fine print. Now I was reading it, and what I found made my hands shake. Clause 14.7 stated that any intellectual property, creative work, or innovation I produced during my employment belonged exclusively to the company in perpetuity. Clause 22.3 said I agreed to be available for work-related matters at any time, day or night, weekends and holidays included. Clause 31.9 required me to receive written permission before accepting any outside employment or starting any business venture. There were 47 other clauses, each one more restrictive than the last. The contract didn't just employ me, it owned significant portions of my life, my time, and my creative output. But here's what Gregory hadn't considered when he'd smiled at me in his office. If he truly owned me under this contract, then he was responsible for me. All of me. I spent the next 3 days researching employment law, contract law, and something I'd never heard of before called unconscionable contracts. Then I made an appointment with an attorney named Patricia Ogunwe, who specialized in labor disputes. She was a small woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. I sat in her office and explained what Gregory had said and showed her my contract. She read it in complete silence for 20 minutes, and when she looked up, she was smiling in a way that made me nervous and excited at the same time. "This contract is absolutely insane," she said. "Half of these clauses wouldn't hold up in court for 5 minutes, but if your boss genuinely believes he owns you based on this document, we can use that." Patricia explained her strategy over the next hour, and with each detail, I understood how perfectly Gregory had trapped himself. If he owned me, then I was effectively company property, and property requires maintenance, insurance, proper care, and compensation for depreciation. If I was his property under this employment contract, then he had responsibilities he'd never considered. She agreed to take my case on contingency, meaning she'd only get paid if we won, which told me she was confident. We spent the next 2 weeks building our case. Patricia had me document everything. Every email Gregory sent after hours, every weekend he called me, every vacation day I'd missed because of his demands, every time I'd worked through illness because he said I couldn't take sick leave, every instance where he'd critiqued my appearance or told me what